Hey you guys, welcome to our 5-week Kick Sugar Challenge. I'm Brittany Sewell, the creator and co-founder of Ezra Snacks. I am currently in the Ezra Snacks kitchen and excited to be here with you guys, teaching you over the course of the next 5 weeks about sugar and all that entails, because it takes up a big portion of our life, even if you don't realize it. So I am also the author of the Simply Sugar-Free Cookbook. And there's a lot of my favorite sugar-free recipes in here, a lot of my story in here, a lot of things I learned in the beginning of giving up sugar. And as we get started, I just want to tell you guys to remember to be kind to yourself on this journey. Don't think because we started this today that you have to be totally sugar-free today. And if you mess up, you fail, you lose, you're out, you have to give up. Because that is not true. My favorite quote, "You never fail until you quit trying," is so true, especially in this. As we learn, I want you to implement things. I don't want you to be perfect today or even perfect in 3 or 4 or at the end 5 weeks. You have to constantly be learning because, one, our food industry is always changing, so you have to learn and change with it and not feel like you fail if you mess up. But I do just want to encourage you guys, when I first started, I messed up a lot. It took me a long time to learn some things that you think I might would have known as I dove into learning about sugar and how to take it out of your family's way of eating. And so I'm here with you today during week 1 to talk to you about why sugar matters, talk to you about the types of sugar, and then throughout the week in our group, we'll be giving you some other details, things about the glycemic index, which you might be like, I don't even know what that is. We're going to teach you all the different names of sugar that you'll find on packaging. And then over the course of 5 weeks, we'll teach you things about reading nutrition labels, how to talk to your kids about sugar and eating healthy, different alternatives to sugar and things like that. So let's just start out by saying food in general is found everywhere in our life, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Food is fuel for our body. It gives us energy throughout the day. It gives us mental focus. It gives us every ability that we need to function. And so what we put in our body is fuel, even though our culture may not see it as that. It's also what brings us together, right? It's when we have food around the table, it makes us come together with people, with friends, with celebrations. It brings us into vulnerable places. And, a lot of times you'll talk and chat about things as you'll eat with friends or eat with people. And it does so much in our culture, and it's a good thing. But also with that, there's so much sugar in there. And we weren't necessarily created to consume as much sugar as we currently are consuming, but it has been put into all of our food. And like I said, food is not bad, food is good, but we have taken it, and like we do a lot of things, we kind of spun it, and there's some bad in there, and we have to narrow down on what is bad, why it harms our body, and how to change the way we are doing sugar and eating and things like that. And so if you look around, celebrations happen all the time. There's birthday parties, there's holidays, we're celebrating all the things. I love to celebrate. Celebrating is fantastic, but also that means there's tons of sugary options around. And it's hard to get out of it. Have you ever said okay, no sugar this week, not doing it, and then you go to work and someone's celebrating something, and you're like, oh, cupcakes or oh, chocolate, and it's just hard to get away from it. And so there is sugar everywhere. But here's the thing, the history of sugar, it started years ago and began, sugar is a natural thing. It comes from the sugar cane, but it began to be processed, and that's where it went wrong. And not only that, but they began to put it in everything because the food industry realized sugar's addictive, and they wanted us to come back for more and more and more of all the processed foods that they're creating. And so they put sugar in it so that we would be addicted to it, so that we would want it. And so sugar is hidden in so many things that you wouldn't even think about. We'll get more into that over the course of this Kick Sugar Challenge, but just know sugar is tricky. It is hidden in all sorts of things. Also, it's not only hidden, it has a ton of names. Let's just call sugar split personality because it's named under so many different things. It tricks you. You don't even know what you're doing. It is hard. And it's constantly evolving and changing. And so we're going to teach you about that. We have some fun things this week that will help you know some of the hidden names of sugar so that you can find those and be aware of those as we begin to look at the foods that are in our pantry, look at the foods that we're buying at the store and things like that. But sugar's everywhere. Sugar's tricky. It comes under so many names. And so when we look at sugar, a lot of times what people will do, they're like, okay, I'm going to do better. I've seen so many people say I want to go sugar-free, but then they'll show all of these products that say sugar-free, sugar-free, no sugar, no sugar. which you think would be great. And this is where the tricky part of the food industry comes. So many times things that are labeled no sugar, they don't have actual sugar, cane sugar, things like that in it, but they are replaced with artificial sweeteners. And that is terrible for our body. It harms our body. And so we don't want to turn around and say, okay, we're taking sugar out, and then we go and we're having all these artificial sweeteners, because they are just as bad for our body. I have this sugar book. We bought this. It's like a Time magazine special that they did on sugar. It is full of good information. I wouldn't call it a book, actually. It's a magazine. I'm going to read you 2 things out of it today. One of the things is about artificial sweeteners, and it talks about how many times we think we're being clever, we think we're being better even, we're putting artificial sweeteners into our body. But what happens with that is we're giving our brains the sweet kick that it's craving without the calories. That's a cool thing about it. You will see no sugar on the label. You will see 0 calories to those things. It's not like sugar with calories. So you think you're tricking your body. You think you're like doing well. The food industry sells you on this is good because it's no sugar. But we're not actually getting away with anything. What happens is the brain actually believes that the taste you had was sugar. It assumes you just ingested a load of sugar because artificial sweeteners are very sweet. It fires up the pancreas, releases insulin, and begins to break it down. But the result that happens is that what might be a healthy blood sugar falls quickly. It gives you a craving for more sweetness, and you keep going back for more and more and more. Like I said, sugar is addictive. And it's actually, this week we're going to share a study with you guys. Super, super interesting. Let's just say it has to do with a mouse and an Oreo and sugar and drugs. And it compares sugar to drugs and how it does the same thing in our brain. It fires up the same things in our brains. So interesting. And the food industry is just really, they understand that sugar keeps us coming back, so they don't do a lot of things to stop us from eating sugar or making us aware that sugar is addictive. But many people say sugar is just as addictive as drugs, and so we should be very careful. So anyways, the point is, we don't want to replace sugar with artificial sweeteners. We also don't want to go replacing sugar with tons and tons and tons of even natural sugars. Things like maple syrup or honey, or things that are good for you, can be made into a bad thing if you're just over consuming them, because still too much of that isn't great for your body. And so we have to be careful. So part of this challenge is not only changing the kind of sugars we're intaking, but also minimizing how much we're intaking. We don't want to just replace all the bad things with tons and tons of good things and constantly be eating sweet things. We want to get our taste buds to a good neutral place where we can enjoy nature's candy, if you will, the things that God gave us that are naturally sweetened for us and our families. So here's the thing. Why not just keep sugar in a little bit? Which you may choose to do that. This is your thing. I'm going to present you with all the information. I'm going to challenge you not only to take it in, but also to begin to use it and start acting this out in your life as we learn together. But why don't we want to just have a little bit of sugar? Like I said, it's because it's addictive. It keeps us coming back for more and more and more. And here's some of the things that sugar does to our bodies. Obviously, it's not working for us. It creates obesity and unhealthy diseases. So 2019, the study done over kids in 2019, ages 2 to 19, 19.3% of kids, basically like kids that are eating to like young adults right before they become an adult, nearly 20% of those were obese, overweight. And that was about 14.4 million children that were obese. Kids ages 4 to 8 are consuming 50 pounds of sugar a year. So 4 to 8. So you could likely say that those kids are consuming their body weight in sugar per year. And we're going to get into this more as we talk about, having a long-term perspective for our families. But many times, especially as women, we see things as like, well, I'm the one that needs to lose weight. I'm the adult. Kids are kids. Let them have all the treats. Let them have all the candy. But we need to be creating this healthy lifestyle for our kids so they don't end up needing to go on a diet or lose the weight when they're adults or have unhealthy relationships with food. We want to start them out early. That was part of where my vision and long-term goals came from, were my children, and wanting to create a healthier lifestyle for them. Because did you know that type 2 diabetes used to only be something that happened in adulthood? It was actually used to be called adult onset diabetes. And now you are seeing so many more children getting diabetes due to obesity and the overuse of sweets and sugar and food. And the same goes with heart disease. Heart disease is one of the leading causes of death. A lot of times it's not given, it doesn't go back to what people eat, but heart disease can come because we have put so much fat into our body from sugar and bad food and junk food, and that causes death. And it's hard for our food industry to trace it back to that because they want you to buy the junk. They want you to buy the packaged goods. They want you to buy the sugar. So they don't want to show those scientific studies that show that that's what it leads back to. But heart disease, obesity, diabetes, and let's just talk straight up. We're in 2022. There's a thing called a sickness that's going around in our world right now. And did you know that when you eat sugar, your immune system is suppressed by 70% for like up to 4 hours after eating sugar? Well, if you're eating sugar all throughout the day at different times, you're just living with a suppressed immune system and more likely to get sick with colds, flu, all the things that are happening. And so we just want to be aware. And like I said, even if you're like, okay, I'll just have a little bit, well, sugar is addictive. So you have to be careful also because it's just going to come back and make you want more and more and more and more. So there's that. So have you ever had like a mid-morning like crash where you're like, oh, I need energy, I'm so tired, I need more caffeine or more sugar, or you have that like mid-afternoon, 2 or 3 o'clock, you have the same thing. It's a sugar crash because you eat sugar, gives you energy, you feel good, and you're like, boom. And if you're like, well, I don't like eat sugar in the mornings. Well, do you drink sugary coffees? Do you ever eat a muffin? Because what they say is, although I do love a good homemade, healthier muffin, but if you go to like, you buy those prepackaged muffins or you go to a coffee shop and buy a muffin, it's basically a cupcake with no icing, full of sugar. Are you eating Pop-Tarts or are you feeding your kids cereal? Those are things that are full of sugar. You're just pumping yourself up. You're literally sending your kids to school on a sugar high, getting ready to drop. It affects their behavior, affects their mental focus. It's going to affect their energy. Same with you. And so those things happen because our body's like, sugar, sugar, sugar. We're feeling good. And then it's like, boom, need more. And it's just like a constant thing that's like, I need more to sustain this energy that I'm trying to have throughout the day. And I know before I gave up sugar, one thing I recognized was how much I always needed sugar. I was very aware that I had become addicted to it. And I remember I worked in an office and I would just like throughout the day it was kind of like maybe calm. I think it was a summer, so there wasn't a lot going on. And I was just like, I would go to the next office over because they had these little mini candies. And I would just go and like fill my pockets, go to my office and eat them. And it was just like, I needed more and more and more. And like nothing was enough to sustain that energy to keep me going throughout the day. And so our body will crave it as we feed it. But cool thing is, as you begin to change what you're eating, you maximize your taste buds that the Lord gave you to enjoy natural sweeteners, to enjoy food that comes from the earth. You realize how sweet some fruits are. You realize this is crazy. You might think you're crazy, Brittany, but some vegetables have a sweetness to them without adding sugar. And you can really begin to enjoy things. And if you're like, I don't even like healthy foods, let me just tell you from experience, when I first gave up sugar, I like to call myself a recovering picky eater. I did not eat vegetables. I began to pray over my taste buds. It was very important to me because I had a child now. He was going to do what I did. I was going to start feeding him. I wanted him to eat real food, real vegetables that I didn't eat. So I began to pray over my taste buds that they would change. Now we eat all sorts of vegetables. I love vegetables. Last week we just made like 5 different vegetables and ate that for dinner because that's what we had. We didn't have any meat thawed. So we just like went with it and we like it and I like it and my kids mainly like most of them. So things can change. So don't get discouraged if you're like, oh, I'm out. I can't even, no, can't change this, can't change that. I encourage you to begin to make small changes. Doesn't have to be all in at once. You are going to fail. I told y'all this in my welcome video I did. You will fail. That's okay. You're going to be all right. Let's do this together. You can do it. Stay encouraged. Try little things at once, just little pieces to begin to make changes for you and your family. You know why? Because you are worth it. And let me just tell you, one thing that I am really passionate about is the idea of exposure equals preference. So the things you are exposed to is what you will prefer. So if all you give your kids is junk food, our junk food is junk food, if all you give them are sugary things, that's what they're going to prefer. They're not going to know to prefer the other. It is, if you've been having bad habits, a lot of junk food, a lot of processed food, a lot of sugar with your kids, it's going to be a hard thing to change. It's going to take time and effort. It's going to take some hard dinners. It's going to take some hard lunches, but you can do it in your kids' health, in your health. It's worth it. And so exposure equals preference for you, for your taste buds, for your children. And guess what, moms, dads, you have the wallet. You do the grocery shopping. Your kids don't do it. They don't get to decide. So you decide what's best for your family. And as we do this training, as we do this Kick Sugar Challenge, we'll begin to talk about how to talk to our kids about that. So hopefully we can get them on board to understand why we care about this and why we want to make these changes for our families. So like I said, you want to remember sugar affects our behavior. It affects our emotional health, our mental health, our immune system, all the things that are happening in our bodies. It affects it. Our food is fueling our bodies. So we want better foods around us. We want our taste buds to change. In America's taste buds are honestly just hyped up because all of our food is just like oversaturated with sugar. All of our sweet stuff is oversaturatedly sweet. We don't even know how to appreciate natural sweetness because of it. And that's hard. But I want to encourage you with this. Don't be overwhelmed. Let's do this together. We're going to begin to make some changes. I want you to begin to think, what is your why? Like I told y'all, my why was having children, wanting a better life for them, wanting them not to be addicted to sugar and be controlled by sugar. Because the idea of being controlled by cravings, of knowing like I have to have more, never being satisfied, always thinking about like how you're going to get the next thing, never being able to say no, always feeling like, okay, it's Monday, I got to do better, I got to get back in the gym, I got to get back on the train of eating healthy, I got to say no to all the things this week. Having that feeling of lack of control, it really stinks. Having your energy hijacked, your mental focus hijacked, knowing your kids' behavior could be better, knowing our health could be better. We want to set ourselves up for long term. So those are some of my whys. I want you to think about what is your why for you and your family, and tell us. We're going to talk about this within our Kick Sugar Challenge group. I want to know, what is your why? And I want you not to get overwhelmed. Remember, we're doing this together. If something in this is like, oh, this feels so hard, this worries me, be part of this group. Share with us because we can encourage one another. And the more you are in it, the more you are sharing, the more likely you are to succeed in your goals with this. Because if you're just trying to do it alone, it's going to be harder for you to do it. It's going to be easier for you to say, I'm out. This is too hard. I'm overwhelmed, or I failed. So what's your why? Don't get overwhelmed. Let's do it together. You are going to fail. Start out bad and let's just get better together. You can do this. It'll take time, but I'm excited to jump along into this with you guys, to teach you. I want to impact so many of you and your families and your health to make better choices for y'all, so that overall it'll just be a better just life for you and your kids. And so I'm excited about this. Tell me below, what is your why and why are you doing this, and is there something that overwhelms you? Let's talk about it. This is great for training number 1. More to come throughout this week and then in more trainings over the course of the next 5 weeks. Thanks.